I want to talk about a comment I got on one of my videos today about a couple of dreams that this person had. But first, I need to talk about these arches, the Triumphal Arch and the entrance to the Temple of Baal Arch. Of course, the reason the media says we need to preserve these abominations is because ISIS is destroying them. But most likely ISIS is us, meaning the US, and it seems to have been a controlled demolition for a purpose, to be able to set up these arches with this particular pretense. From December 26th, so as soon as Saturnalia Festival, December 25th, celebrating Nimrod/Tammuz was over with, in 2015, an article called UN Condemns Destruction of World Heritage Sites as War Crimes analysis got posted on the web. They mentioned that in October, the Arch of Triumph in Palmyra fell victim to extremists. I am mentioning it just to differentiate it from the Temple of Baal that was destroyed in late August. The Temple of Baal was destroyed in such a way that the gateway to the Temple of Baal, the arch, was still standing. Like I said, controlled demolition. They made sure not to destroy the arch. From the article 3D to the Rescue of Archaeological Treasures Threatened by Daesh, Oxford and Harvard University researchers revealed their project to record with 3D cameras archaeological treasures threatened the Middle East by the Islamic State. An announcement revealed shortly after the destruction of Baal Shamin, or Shaman, I'm not sure, the Temple of Palmyra, old, almost 2,000 years, one of the most important archaeological destructions since World War II. It even mentions the architecture being reborn. That was in another language and Google translated. Apologies for the grammatical errors in it. I just wanted to have it recorded here that the announcement of the project was shortly after the destruction of the Temple of Baal, which left the important arch up, showing that it was most likely a controlled demolition, of course. From an article on March 26, 2016, from The Guardian, titled "Palmyra Will Rise Again, We Have to Send a Message to Terrorists." Sorry, flashbacks of I told somebody else that we had to send a message to terrorists one time. It just seems like total propaganda. Anyway, Palmyra's famous temples will rise again from the desert sands, Syria's top archaeologist has promised, as he prepared to inspect how much of the ancient city survived or can be salvaged from the ravages of Islamic State. "We will not leave the temples destroyed," Mamoun Abdelkarim, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that one, Syria's director of antiquities, said as Syrian government troops came closer to retaking one of the most spectacular ancient sites in the world from ISIS. Skipping down, "We will assess how much damage the stones suffered and we will reuse them in order to scientifically put back the temples," Abdel Karim said in a phone interview from Damascus, promising a blueprint for reconstruction by next month. "We have the plans and the images, and we will rebuild the missing portions until the temples of Bel and Baal Shamin are rebuilt." So they plan on rebuilding the temple of Baal, Bel, it's all the same thing, and Baal Shamin, or Shaman, not sure on that one. They are probably most likely referring to the same god, different names, but either way they are two separate temples, and they are both planning on getting rebuilt. From the New York Times, and I'll link to this article, "Using lasers to preserve antiquities threatened by ISIS." They have a video of the digital reconstruction of the Ishtar gates, and Ishtar is the mother of the pagan trinity. They also discuss ancient Babylon and the site Nimrod with a U, but you can bet it had to do with Nimrod with an O. I'm just not going to elaborate on that in this particular video. There are always links below so that you can study these things for yourself. So they go in and they capture with a 3D camera what the artifacts look like, and then they recreate them digitally. One company they mention is CyArk, CYARK, which I'm guessing comes from cyber arc, but that is just a guess. It is spelled ARK, not ARCH, like archaeology. From their mission page, CyArk was founded in 2003 to ensure heritage sites are available to future generations while making them uniquely accessible today. CyArk operates internationally as a 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of using new technologies to create a free 3D online library of the world's cultural heritage sites before they are lost to natural disasters, destroyed by human aggression, or ravaged by the passage of time. Basically, these companies, CyArk and the Institute for Digital Archaeology and probably others, are all compiling data concerning these old pagan spots. This way, the spots can be destroyed, but they can just rebuild them again, perhaps stockpiling so that when the destruction happens, they don't have to worry about their precious pagan monuments being destroyed. From the article, another organization, the Institute for Digital Archaeology, also known as IDA, is putting together an open source million image database. Its aim is to use images taken before the destruction of sites such as Palmyra to record and even rebuild some monuments. Its director of technology, Alexei Karinowaska, a physicist at Oxford University, said that the Institute was supplying volunteers with 5,000 lightweight 3D cameras. They are less precise but more discreet and easier to maintain than laser scanners to document at-risk cultural sites throughout the Middle East and North Africa. In April, at Trafalgar Square in London, it will install a temporary full-scale replica of the Arch of the Temple of Baal in Palmyra based on its 3D digital model. The arch's current status is uncertain, although much of the temple appears to have been destroyed. First, I want to mention it wasn't a full-scale replica, but I'll get into that later. Secondly, Informed Christians did a good video on this, and I'll leave a link below, saying the Temple of Baal was next to the Triumphal Arch. So they were very, very close, and that is part of the mix-up. You could have said the Triumphal Arch was at the Temple of Baal if you were a tourist, because they are very close on the map. But news articles should have been more clear, more precise. And saying the Arch of the Temple of Baal seems to have been done on purpose, also to push a message. From the end of the article, and this was written on December 27, 2015. Plenty of non-digital work is necessary too, of course. The site of Babylon needs laborious and costly conservation work, which will be helped by a $530,000 United States Embassy grant announced last week, if its vulnerable monuments are to be preserved in the real world, not just virtually. However, tens of thousands of Babylonian artifacts already lie far from ISIS's reach in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, because they were excavated by German archaeologists in the early 1900s. I'm getting flashbacks to Stargate, when they were doing all the archaeological excavation of the Stargate. Anyway, Marcus Hilgert, director of the Museum of the Ancient Near East at the Pergamon, said that it would be possible one day to 3D scan the material in Berlin, combine it with the digital model already done in Babylon, and create a physical walkthrough exhibition combining every stage of the ancient city. The idea is to have a virtual reunification of the archaeological objects extant in Babylon and Berlin, Dr. Hilgert said. This is what is so important about the time we are experiencing. We have to learn again that cultural objects, elements of culture, have very much to do with who we are, what we identify with, how we orient ourselves in this world. I have to wonder if they don't intend to make a virtual reality city of Babylon that people can go to through the internet, like the game Second Life, but in virtual reality, and have it be in this setting. Either way, this information is getting stored somewhere, and they plan to use it. Obviously, it's already getting used with the Palmyra Triumphal Arch. There's a lot of misinformation about the Triumphal Arch that went up in Trafalgar Square. People think it was supposed to be the Arch of Baal or the Temple of Baal, and they canceled it, and instead went for the Triumphal Arch of Palmyra. I think this misinformation, these false stories, were done on purpose. However, you are free to think it was just a mistake. Either way, some very reputable sources got this completely wrong information out to the public from the very beginning. The digital archaeology company perhaps was to blame, and I certainly don't trust them for the truth, seeing as how they wanted to build these in the first place. I'm going to go through some of the articles concerning it. I will show you what people said, what different articles said, and you can pray for discernment through the Holy Spirit to figure out what the truth was and to separate it from the lies. From Newsweek on 11/11/2015, the new monument men outsmart ISIS. From the caption, a Syrian soldier sits among ancient ruins in Palmyra, Syria. In this photo taken on March 23, 2014, the Temple of Baal, once one of the best preserved sites in Palmyra, was destroyed by the Islamic State in late August 2015. The Institute of Digital Archaeology managed to reach Palmyra before the destruction, however, and document the ancient site in hopes of reconstructing it someday. From the article, on a summer day in 2014, with the high Syrian sun beating down, a volunteer with a camera made his way toward the rose gold ruins of the ancient city of Palmyra. Interestingly, they took this footage before the Temple of Baal was destroyed. Another bit from the caption in the article, ISIS rigged the structure with explosives and brought it down. This just means it was controlled. I am sure that the Temple of Baal was a controlled demolition too. And for all I know, they may even be meaning the Temple of Baal right here, because they're talking about the city of Palmyra and the Temple of Baal was there, and it's very difficult to get a real good idea on what is the truth, and that's what this video is all about, really. From the article, the contribution the monuments men made to the Western artistic heritage is unquestionable. Made up of historians, professors, art professionals, and curators, the monuments men, and there were also a few women, worked during World War II to recover and protect looted works of art from the Nazis. Without them, much of Europe's most important artwork, Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, which is pagan goddess, by the way, Vermeer's The Astronomer, Jan van Eyck's Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, these are probably all pagan, would have been lost forever. More than 70 years later, the world of historic art and architecture has found itself in similar threatening circumstances. Areas of the Middle East have been embroiled in warfare for years, and the casualties include ancient priceless architecture. Skipping down, carvings in the courtyard of the sanctuary of Baal in Palmyra before ISIS destroyed them. The IDA managed to reach Palmyra before the destruction. The hope is that its work will enable researchers to recreate the site. The IDA is the Institute of Digital Archaeology, the ones who created the Palmyra Triumphal Arch reconstruction. Work on what IDA has named the Million Image Database began in early 2015. In order to quickly create photographic equipment unique to this project, a technology team led by magnetician Alexei Karanowaska was assembled at Oxford. So now we have a problem. They have contradicted themselves in the same article. Here they say the IDA wasn't started until early 2015. In the beginning it says that they took pictures in the summer of 2014. My guess is the summer was supposed to be 2015 and it was just a typo, but I don't know. This has been the most aggravating video I have ever done because every single article seems to contradict what happened and what the other articles say. From another caption, a picture taken on March 14, 2014 shows carvings on a wall in the courtyard of the sanctuary of Baal in Palmyra. From the 1st to the 2nd century, the art and architecture of Palmyra, standing at the crossroads of several civilizations, married Greco-Roman techniques with local traditions of Persian influences. Islamic State militants destroyed the sanctuary of Baal on August 23rd. It is hoped the Institute of Digital Archaeology can someday recreate the ancient site. With the camera development underway, it was time to choose the targets. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and IDA came up with a list of the most threatened sites in Jordan, Afghanistan, Turkey, Syria, Yemen, Egypt, Iran, and Iraq. The specifics can't be publicly discussed due to the sensitive nature of the project and concerns for the safety of those involved. But many of the sites chosen were on UNESCO's list of World Heritage in danger, including Palmyra, which the team was able to reach and document before its destruction. Overall, Michael has noted that the project has been going smoother than anticipated. He estimates they have about 1,000 cameras in the field now and plan to have up to 5,000 by the end of the year. That was 2015. With over 200,000 images already scanned, they are on track to have 1 million or more by year's end. And despite the risks, people seem to have an appetite for this, says Michael. The project is about more than just averting the loss of some old piles of stone. Catherine Hansen, a University of Pennsylvania fellow whose archaeological work focuses on the protection of cultural heritage, notes that the loss of ruins in places like Palmyra and Nimrud, a 3,000-year-old city in Iraq with hundreds of registered historical sites, can inflict acute suffering on people in the region. It is vitally important that we remember that the built cultural heritage of a place is deeply connected to a local population's sense of identity, she says. Of course, the Nimrud is probably connected to Nimrod, which is basically the Antichrist. Anyway, another caption, the Temple of Baal in Palmyra was photographed and scanned by a team of researchers in an effort to preserve a record of it should ISIS or another group destroy it. So now we can be absolutely sure that they got both the Temple of Baal and the Palmyra Arch done while they were there. Buildings that were destroyed could be built in the exact likeness of the original thanks to new 3D concrete printing technology. According to Michael, concrete was one of the most widely used materials in the classical period, so we'd be using essentially the same materials that these structures were built from originally. There are already plans to construct a replica of the Temple of Baal Arch, a 2nd century triple archway built in Palmyra by the Romans for World Heritage Day in London during March of next year, which of course was past now. The temple's main building and colonnade were leveled between August and September of this year. It's about August 30th, I think. But satellite images had shown that although it had been heavily damaged, the arch avoided complete destruction. The structure's remarkable resilience, yet still uncertain fate, will make our reconstruction of it, we feel, a powerful and thought-provoking centerpiece for the March event. Karen Owaska noted, the reconstructed arch will be retained in England until it can one day be placed back in Palmyra. This article was from 11/11/2015, as I said earlier. Here they are saying that they are planning on having the Temple of Baal Arch in England. We know that they did not do this, at least not publicly. I'll also point out, according to CNN, the Triumphal Arch was made with Egyptian marble. This is an interesting article, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to read too much more. One line caught my eye. Currently, an online portal is being developed by IDA that will house all of the collected images from the project. They will be available to the public sometime in early 2016, giving many an opportunity to see places they never knew existed until they become headlines as casualties of war. Interestingly, they use the word portal, and also they're saying places they never knew existed until they become headlines as casualties of war. This kind of like predicting the fact that there's going to be more casualties of war. I know that's not a huge prediction, but concerning what they already have, they know that there's going to be more casualties of war of these archaeological artifacts that they have already categorized. This article in November of last year has an image from the Institute of Digital Archaeology, and it's of the Temple of Baal. It is not the Triumphal Arch. The IDA was clearly planning on reconstructing the Temple of Baal archway in November 2015 thanks to this article. At some point, this obviously changed. Digital Archaeology's website has a news page, and it shows the news articles concerning the Triumphal Arch in chronological order with the most recent on top, though I did notice at least one error in timing. They show snippets in some cases with pictures from the articles, so from their website, in November, Apollo magazine gave them an award. From the article, the Million Image Database is a collaborative international project that aims to compile as complete a photographic record as possible of endangered sites and artifacts in the Middle East. Thousands of specifically adapted cameras are being shipped from the IDA's Oxford base to regional volunteers, whose photographs are uploaded to an online database. This material will be processed to produce a virtual, navigable 3D renderings of the original objects. From spring next year, the evolving digital catalog will be released as an open access hub. The spring next year was referencing the last few months, of course. But Apollo is the sun god, and Apollyon is mentioned in the Bible also. Side note from RT concerning CERN. Now, on top of all the speculation as to what CERN scientists are really attempting to do with their Large Hadron Collider, many observers cannot help but notice that the town in France where CERN is partially situated is called St. Genus Puoli. The name Puoli comes from the Latin Apolliacum, and it is believed that in Roman times a temple existed in honor of Apollo, and the people who lived there believed that it is a gateway to the underworld. It is interesting to note that CERN is built on the same spot. Religious leaders, always suspicious of the aims of the scientific world, drew a connection to a verse straight out of Revelations 9, verse 1-2 and 11, which makes reference to the name Apollyon. The verse states, "To him was given the key to the bottomless pit, and he opened the bottomless pit. And they had a kind over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon." Now try telling a spiritual leader that the Bible is conspiracy theory. So this digital archaeology is tied to Apollo already from getting the award from Apollo. On December 28th, the Times reported on the Triumphal Arch. You'll see here clearly the picture is the Triumphal Arch. The middle one is what got placed at Trafalgar Square. The fact that there are 3 arches here, well, that's probably worth a whole nother video. Veritas Aquitas posted this thread, triptych, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, doorway, key to the sacred science spirituality of the mother civilization on the site above top secret. The link is below. I will not endorse him or anything he says. I actually have not even read it all. And the mother just refers to the mother of the pagan trinity, really. It was just a good compilation of pictures showing these 3 doors or arches around the world. Yes, it shows up in the Last Supper painting, but Jesus probably didn't have long hair, so that's probably representing the Antichrist figure here that they would bombard people with over time. Again, that's another rabbit hole I'm not going to get into anymore here. From the article from the Times on December 28th, 2015, Palmyra's last stand in Trafalgar Square. The 15-meter-high structure which stood at the temple's entrance was badly damaged in an explosion, but has remained standing for now. The full-size replica will be a symbol of defiance in the face of attempts to erase the Middle East's pre-Islamic history. The arch is being created in sections in Shanghai and will be shipped to Italy for finishing before being erected like a giant Lego set in the shadow of Nelson's column. Simultaneously, there are plans for identical arches in Times Square, New York. The Palmyra Arch is due to be on display during World Heritage Week in April. A couple of things. First, it wasn't a full-size replica. As I said, it was 2/3. And I got that information from CNN's article, Palmyra's Ancient Triumphal Arch Resurrected in London's Trafalgar Square. The 2/3 size is very significant because it is 66.6% the original size. I also found that on a few different places on the internet, like somebody's comment section, which I wasn't going to quote the comment section, so I'm quoting CNN even though CNN may have material of the arch wrong. And second, it's funny that they say it's in the shadow of Nelson's column, because Nelson's column is the phallic symbol, and behind where the arch was the dome representing the pregnant woman's belly. So they have the phallic symbol and the pregnant belly. And they are particularly pointing out its location next to the column. Obviously, that mattered to them. Thirdly, it says simultaneously there are plans for identical arches in Times Square, New York. As far as I can figure out, it is the exact same arch coming to New York City in September on the 19th in 2016. So even though this article got the right arch in the picture, it still had a lot of misinformation here. From IDA's website, in a post called Racing Against Militant Threat to Document Syria's Cultural Heritage, quote, the project called Anqua, the Arabic word for the phoenix, the legendary bird that rises from the ashes, aims to laser scan 200 objects in Syria, Iraq, and other parts of the region, said its director Ben Kassira of the California-based scanning nonprofit SciArc, end quote. I talked about SciArc already, so it is pretty obvious there's some pagan stuff going on here, since the phoenix represents the pagan trinities Nimrod being reincarnated as a phoenix. Palmyra has to do with palm trees. In Jeremiah 10, the famous verses concerning the Christmas tree, it mentions the palm tree as an idol. They did not use evergreen trees that people usually use back then over there. Jeremiah 10 verse 1, Hear ye the word which Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yahweh, Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are in vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold, they fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. For as much as there is none like unto thee, Yahweh, thou art great, and thy name is great in might. First, I want to point out the reason we believe in a living God is because the rest of the people of this world believe in idols that are not living, that cannot go, that need to be born, created. They are not living. They are created by human hands. People worship money, cars, things. We worship the living God who can actually take care of us. That is why they use the word living God. This verse is about people worshiping a tree. The palm tree is the tree that is shaped into an idol. People who don't want to give up Christmas will usually explain it this way, that it's just an idol. It's not. If you're not worshiping the Christmas tree as an idol, then you're not worshiping an idol. It is talked about as an idol that cannot move, but they are definitely dressing it up like a Christmas tree. And that points to the phoenix himself, Nimrod. Nimrod was cut down from his life when he died. That is what the tree getting cut down represents. He was supposedly reborn, and that is why the Christmas tree is a triangle shape with an illuminated top in the shape of a star or an angel. It represents Tammuz, or, in my humble opinion, Lucifer, who they call the morning star. This is about setting it upright and being reborn. That is what putting a Christmas tree up is all about. But this video is not about not celebrating Christmas. I just want to point out that the idol or false god Nimrod is associated with a palm tree, and therefore Palmyra, land of the palms. Also from theopenscroll.com concerning Ash Wednesday, and this is a long web page concerning Ash Wednesday, which really gets people ready for the mark of the beast, by the way, the mark on their foreheads. But anyway, scrolling down, the date palm tree is a sign of Apollo, because he had been born under a palm tree in Delos. His mother Leto clung to it in the agonies of childbirth. The date palm thus facilitated the arrival of Apollo, son of Zeus and the sun god, Did you get that? As the source of the ashes burnt and the reconstituted revived by the priesthood of the Romish sun god worshipping cult that labors continually to welcome that ancient god back to reign, the date palm is a fit choice. The palm tree was also a symbol of Hermes, the agent who is perhaps most actively involved in making Apollo's return as the Antichrist beast a reality. The Phoenix Palm Portal. The preferred branches to use come from the date palm Phoenix dacitylifera. Probably butchered that pronunciation, sorry. Yes, the genus is Phoenix. If you haven't yet, you should relate this to the legendary phoenix, the bird that signifies resurrection, dying to rise from its own ashes. Are you getting the picture here? The ashes used in the ritual are literally the ashes of the phoenix. That's the Lent ritual, by the way. The familiar phoenix story actually represents the antithesis of the life, death, and resurrection of the genuine Messiah. It equates to the Osiris cycle of death and rebirth, the sun god cycle. The ashes that mark the forehead thus identify those so marked with Horus, aka Apollo. Perhaps the most dramatic testimony I can give about the association of the phoenix with the Antichrist beast is to offer an example, this picture, of the enormous tapestry that hangs in the Security Council chamber at the UN in New York City. New York City. Destined to be the phoenix. Okay, anyway, the phoenix is central, featured rising from its ashes. Its roots are associated with the tomb where a dragon-like creature has been imprisoned. Its head is associated with the child, the spawn of the scene's marital union. I believe the three are one, the locked in the tomb creature, the child, and the phoenix that bridges them. The phoenix is presented below the Vesica Pisces shaped frame as though birthed out of the vaginal opening. An interpretation strengthened by the observation that the vegetation in the covering frame gives the appearance of a bushy pubic patch. My cursor was over it. The anatomical features extend even to the bottom of the illustration where the bowels of the earth are presented. This graphic scene is the backdrop for everything that happens in the Security Council chamber of the United Nations in New York City, where the primary activity concerns the assertion of global authority. It's a noteworthy observation that Phoenix Palm resurrection connections appear in the book of Job, which is acknowledged as the most ancient book in the biblical canon. 18. Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all night upon my branch. The word for sand can also be translated phoenix, as it is in the Greek text of the LXX. Both elements, the waters that the root was spread out by and the dew on the palm branches, signify resurrection life. This web page goes on, but I am trying to keep this video as short as possible. Yes, the palm tree, Palmyra, Phoenix, and Pagan Trinity go hand in hand with each other. And one of the groups working on the restoration of Palmyra has a name that translated to Phoenix. There are mentions of the architecture structures as being reborn in articles. This is not an accident. From Wired.com, a jailed activist's 3D models could save Syria's history from ISIS. From October 21st, 2015. When Basil Baal first began creating photographic three-dimensional models of the ancient historic ruins known as Palmyra, he hoped to preserve one of Syria's greatest archaeological treasures. 10 years later, Baal is a prisoner of Syria's fascist Assad regime, and Palmyra is being systematically destroyed by ISIS. Now Basil's friends and fellow activists hope his 3D models might save not only Palmyra, but himself. On Wednesday, a group of online activists, archivists, and archaeologists plan to release the first batch of files from the new Palmyra project, an online collection of reconstructed 3D models of the 1st century AD city, originally based on photographs taken by Basil in a series of trips he took to the site starting in 2005. The group says its models created with the Autodesk software Maya, like Maya civilizations, yeah, can be used for online visualizations, Oculus-style walkthroughs, or even 3D printing miniature replicas. It's also inviting anyone who has more data from the Palmyra site to upload it to the group's crowdsourced repository, the better to create the world's most detailed digital reconstruction of the ancient oasis city. Notice the Oculus mentioned. That is a virtual reality helmet. So yes, they intend these to be used virtually, in virtual reality. Skipping down a little bit. Meanwhile, Palmyra, a UNESCO World Heritage Site near the city of Hamas in central Syria, has been controlled by ISIS since March. The extremist thugs have executed locals and obliterated a series of the site's priceless monuments and landmarks that they've declared to be sacrilegious idols. The latest to fall were the site's Triumphal arches, a collection of 2 millennial-old structures that the terrorist group destroyed earlier this month in a highly publicized bombing. The new Palmyra project seeks to digitally rebuild those structures as they're being physically deleted, and in doing so, put a spotlight on the project's creator that could help pressure the Assad regime to release him. Skipping down a little bit. In just the last 2 months, ISIS has blown up the temples of Baal Shamin and of Baal, 2 of the oldest structures in Palmyra, and then most recently exploded the Triumphal arches built by the Romans to commemorate a military victory over the Persians. Skipping down a little. The new Palmyra project isn't the only group seeking to use digital modeling to save the Middle East's treasures from ISIS. The Oxford Institute of Digital Archaeology has launched a million images database, seeks to bring low-cost 3D cameras to activists in Syria who can still document places that haven't been destroyed by ISIS or by the war's bombing. Another project by the 3D scanning focused nonprofit SciArc aims to use laser scanners to create models of endangered antiquities down to a few millimeters of accuracy. The new Palmyra projects Barry Through admits that Basil's photographic images aren't so exact. The reconstructions the group has made so far from photographs and satellite images are artistic, in quotes, he says, rather than scientific. But given ISIS destruction over the past months, the group's models may already document structures that are otherwise lost to history. This is a project about taking ISIS's destruction and building something new out of it in the virtual space, says Through. It's an attempt to rebirth this culture with digital tools. I saw this video on newpalmyra.org, but it is a YouTube video called John Phillips on Free Basil Campaign New Palmyra Protocultural and Events, with hashtags on there. You can look it up. Anyway, he talks about Basil a lot in the beginning, and you hopefully get the idea that Basil started the project and was taken. But if you skip forward a few minutes in this video, he starts talking about the new Palmyra. They are talking about photos, music, artwork that was originally there and remaking the city virtually. And we've already talked about how it's going to be virtual reality and all that stuff. This is a quote from his video. "We are having a quality first, and from the quality we will release models over time. We're going to be releasing a master plan of the city, 3D model of the city, and with that our idea is to move forward on the new Palmyra. The city of heroes is Palmyra." Note the 3 minutes and 33 seconds mark of this video. "The city of heroes that cannot be conquered." It's equating the city of Palmyra as a city of heroes that cannot be conquered. If you haven't seen anything on Invictus, I have a few videos. Actually, I made a playlist. But basically, the Invictus poem is all about the fallen angels saying that they cannot be conquered, and they are the master of their soul and their fate, and it is completely antichrist. So it's almost laughable to me. Actually, I think I did laugh when I heard it. So it's not just almost laughable. It's only further proof that what I am saying is right, and that what I am looking up is what I should be looking up, and what I am sharing is what I should be sharing. From Christian Science Monitor, Tech World takes on icon-smashing Islamic State with a virtual Palmyra. One of the attractions of digital archaeology, say proponents, is that it can make monuments like Palmyra's Baal Temple, which IS militants blew up in August, accessible online. Mr. Through, a San Francisco-based artist focusing on experiential technologies, imagines a day when virtual reality headsets are so ubiquitous that people at home can put them on and inhabit a space like Palmyra without having to get into an airplane or walk into a war zone. Tridio, a startup company in Argentina, recently used 3D printers to produce a model of the temple. We were able to reconstruct the whole temple thanks to pre-existing photographs and archives, says Laurent Rodriguez of Tridio. It was also a way of showing we are against IS. Tridio's model, which respected the scale of the ruins, was printed over several hours, 1.2 millimeter layer of plastic at a time. The base of the miniature temple was rolled out first, followed by more than 36 columns, and then the top of the structure. In France, Johann Janin of Archaeologie Virtuelle is creating detailed virtual reality versions of the Baal Temple as it stood at the end of the 2nd century, drawing on the scientific publications of German and French archaeologists who explored the site in the 20th century. The Temple of Baal was an archaeological symbol architectural symbol of the mixture of Mediterranean and Eastern cultures, says Mr. Janin. The temple's ruins were well preserved before their destruction. The only variation in his virtual reality version, he adds, will be a tribute to peace. That would be the false peace that the Antichrist is pushing, by the way. Tridio, well, first, the TRI for Tridio represents the Trinity or the triune pagan god. Is it a shock to learn that Tridio is a Catholic organization? Not to me. Tridio's website About Us page clearly says that they are, but the video for Legos and Lent on the front page clued me in. What's a Catholic business doing reconstructing the Temple of Baal? Makes no sense if you think that they are still Christian. From Al-Ahram Weekly, Palmyra destroying Syria's Louvre. News emerged in September that the group had also blown up several of the ancient tower tombs at Palmyra dating from 44 to 103 CE. In October, it destroyed the Roman Triumphal Arch built to celebrate a victory over the Persians that stood at the entrance to the remains of a grand colonnade of ancient pillars. It was reported in August that the group had savagely killed the site's former head of antiquities, Khaled al-Azad, after he had refused to reveal the location of some of Palmyra's ancient treasures. He was actually very much in charge of protecting it, and so just a couple of weeks after he got killed, they bombed it. The explanation the group has given for the destruction of the ruins of Palmyra is that they are idolatrous. I also want to point out that they are saying that their terrorist group ISIS said that the ruins were idolatrous. This is important because the Christians who would agree that these things are quite idolatrous also now could be labeled as terrorists for not wanting these things to be rebuilt. What they are doing is laying the groundwork to call anyone who says these things are idolatrous as terrorists, or at the very least anti-cultural. I have noticed through studying these articles all day long that one thread that keeps coming up is that they say they want to protect our common heritage and or cultural backgrounds. They will not tolerate people who say that those things must be destroyed. The Bible is clear. Yahweh wanted a lot of idols destroyed in the Bible, and he does not change. The enemy knows this, and they are making the general public think that you are crazy if you are against cultural things, even if they are idolatrous to Yahweh. People signed a petition to keep the arch from coming to New York City, and it's still going to come. You think our opinion matters? And we will look like the freaks who are anti-cultural for not wanting to have anything to do with it, to protest these things. Further on in the article, Palmyra has been registered as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO since 1980, and it is one of 6 such sites in Syria. According to UNESCO, the ruins of Palmyra, rising out of the Syrian desert in an oasis northeast of Damascus, are testament to the unique aesthetic achievement of a wealthy caravan oasis under the rule of Rome from the 1st to the 3rd century CE. Don't forget, Damascus is supposed to be a ruinous heap, according to the Bible, prophecy yet to come to pass. And notice the term rising out of the desert. Palmyra is known as Syria's pearl of the desert, a pearl rising up like a phoenix, or sun, perhaps? Pearl, sun. Sounds like a sun to me. Remember, UNESCO is part of the United Nations, which is essentially in charge of all the nations right now, and I believe the Pope is behind that, but that's just my humble opinion. From Inhabitat, world's largest 3D printer will create ISIL, destroyed Syrian ruins in London and New York. In August, Islamic State militants destroyed most of the Temple of Baal in Syria, an ancient gateway that connected the Roman Empire to Persia. The 2,000-year-old temple had previously been designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, and that honor is perhaps part of the reason members of the group decided to blow it up. Now, as a symbolic gesture of remembrance and solidarity, the surviving arch will be recreated by the world's largest 3D printer, and the duplicate models will be erected in London's Trafalgar Square and New York City's Times Square. Here it says the arch that survived from the Temple of Baal, not the Triumphal Arch. Also, it says there will be duplicate models with an S. But again, as far as I can figure out from IDA's own website, it is the exact same arch traveling from London to New York City. Once again, the IDA actually made mock-ups of the arch from the Temple of Baal. As for the New York City installment from the IDA website, it is occurring September 19th. We now have a date. And if it is like London, it will probably last 3 days. Interestingly enough, that should bring it to the 22nd. The 23rd is, well, 9/23. Those numbers keep popping up. But this is in 2016, and it is also the fall equinox. Perhaps they will deconstruct the gate and reconstruct it in a secret location in New York on the 23rd. That is just a wild hair theory. It's interesting timing nonetheless. Also, on the Satanic holiday chart, September 21st is called Midnight Host, a blood sacrifice night, something to do with the dismemberment of hands removed for a hand of glory. According to bibliotechalapleiades.net, it's called Mabon or Mabon, M-A-B-O-N, and it's just another one of those Illuminati human sacrifice nights. I don't know about this stuff for sure. I'm just repeating what I have found online. But it is interesting nonetheless that it lands on one of the days that the arch will be up in New York City. On the IDA website for New York is a quote. New York, you are ancient Egypt, but an Egypt turned inside out, for she erected pyramids of slavery and you erect pyramids of democracy. With the vertical organ pipes of your skyscrapers all meeting at the point of infinity of liberty. Salvador Dali. It's one of the most interesting quotes I've ever read. Does New York really want to be called ancient Egypt, considering the Bible verses of spiritual Sodom and Egypt being where the 2 witnesses die? Oh well, Casey from Enter the Stars has done a lot of work on how very alike the U.S. is to Egypt, especially New York City, especially the World Trade Centers concerning the pyramids. I'm not saying we are spiritual Egypt, as the witnesses are supposed to die where Jesus did. Revelation 11:8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. But calling a place ancient Egypt is not really a kind thing to do, considering the Bible quote I just read. It's a very, very interesting quote. Also, it says you erect pyramids of democracy, and in the president Obama's speech. I did a video on it, and you can listen to it. In the beginning of it, my video is very short. In the beginning, he says, "The end of the republic." At the end, he says, "Thank you for strengthening the democracy." These are sort of two different things. A republic is where the people are actually represented. A democracy is where they aren't, basically, that other people are representing you. And we were built on a republic where the people were actually voting in people and all that stuff to represent them and their interests. And basically Obama was saying the republic's over, we're a democracy. And this quote is saying that we erect pyramids of democracy. And it also says vertical organ pipes with skyscrapers. I remember I heard something where the two towers, somebody equated it to being like a pitchfork. A tuning fork, I mean. A tuning fork that when you disrupt it, it causes a vibration. And there's also a video out there that you can search up. Sorry, it's getting a bit late. And anyway, I've been doing this the whole day long. I'm trying to get this done. But there's a video out there that the One World Trade Center has a mysterious noise. And it's a mysterious whistling noise. So I think there's something to the skyscrapers and noises. And so this quote is really chock full of a lot of stuff here. So you erect pyramids of democracy with the vertical organ pipes of your skyscrapers, all meeting at the point of infinity of liberty. Infinity is, 8, and it's also been used a lot. Everybody will say 88 is about time travel. I've said it. 8 represents infinity, is time. 88 miles per hour is how fast they had to go to time travel. So infinity is also what they want to do. The elite are trying to square the circle. And that's all about getting infinity. The circle is infinity. They want to square the circle, and that's about getting infinity into the square, which is a finite thing. That's what the Ouroboros is all about. I thought about doing a video about that, and I haven't done it yet. They're all about infinity. They want to last forever. They want to live forever. And liberty, like our Statue of Liberty, is not about freedom. It's about being... It's libertas, and also about being free from God, basically. Free from the judgment of God. So it's not really the best, it's not what you want to be. Okay. So that quote was completely full of something. He knows what's going on, Salvador Dali. I don't know who he is, but yeah. Anyway, very, very interesting quote. On UPI.com, there is another article, Palmyra, Syria, arch threatened by Islamic State to be recreated in London, New York City. That says the arch from the Temple of Baal will be put up in London and New York during the same week. That was a very common lie. They also say it will be a full-scale replica. Again, that's not true. From the end of the article, to the horror of international historians and archaeologists, it has also destroyed a number of significant sites in 2015, including the ancient cities of Nimrud, with a U, and Hatra in Iraq, and the Shagraf Shrine, the St. Elian Monastery, and the Palmyra Temple of Baal, and Temple of Bel in Syria. Snopes.com has a page on this, and I do not trust Snopes anymore. I used to use it, but since I woke up I found that they lie about things. Oh well, right? The article is called Foul Baal. Temporary reproductions of the Temple of Baal's arch destroyed by ISIS in Syria, planned for New York City and London, sparked inaccurate online rumors. The former was put on hold indefinitely. First thing, the arch from the Temple of Baal was the only thing that was not destroyed. So yeah, Snopes, way to go, lying from the start. They say the claim was the Temple of Baal is being rebuilt in New York and London as an operable house of worship with more such temples to follow. Okay, I never heard that once, and I was paying attention. Do you see what they do? They make an outrageous claim in order to put a big X false on it, so that people do not look closer and see that it's not what was originally claimed, and what people were claiming was actually true. That is a method of witchcraft or mind control. What's true? Replicas of the arch from Syria's Temple of Baal were planned for London and New York City's World Heritage Week in April 2016. New York's project was shelved indefinitely as of early April 2016. What's false? The structures will be full, permanent, and operational houses of worship. What's undetermined? Whether the arch in London will be moved to New York after a period of initial display. They are still saying that the arch is from the Temple of Baal, which it is very close in proximity, very, very close, but it is not from the Temple of Baal. So, second strike Snopes. The only thing that is false is that these would be full, permanent, and operational houses of worship, which I absolutely have never heard. Notice they don't even know the Arch of Triumph is coming to New York City. Well, they probably know, but they aren't going to tell you that it's coming. From Snopes, other blogs added to the cacophony of fear, suggesting that the structure was one of many planned for myriad sites, and that its construction could invoke the wrath of God. Quote, the reproductions of the 50-foot arch that stood at the Temple of Baal in Palmyra, Syria, that will be erected in New York City and London next month will only be the first of many. As you will see below, it turns out that there are plans to put arches in hundreds more cities all over the globe. End quote. Guess what? That's true. I did a video on it. Why is Snopes saying it's false? Also, Snopes laughs it off like it couldn't invoke the wrath of God. I mean, the quote right there says, put arches in hundreds more cities all over the globe. That is true. Arches. Hundreds more cities. I think it's actually 1,000. From the New York Post, 3D printing to bring Syrian arch destroyed by ISIS back to life. This is December 29th, 2015. At the end of the article, it says the Institute plans to construct approximately 1,000 such versions of the arch in cities throughout the world. The Institute plans to construct approximately 1,000 of them. I am saying this over again because I believe they got their information from the Institute. Somewhere out there, the Institute said they plan on creating 1,000 such versions, because there is no way somebody would just make that up out of nowhere and add it to their article, right? Okay, I think that sounds pretty logical to me. The end of the Snopes.com article says the project was tweaked for its London incarnation and put on hold indefinitely in New York. However, interest in reproducing the demolished antiquity remained archaeological in nature, not religious. As if God wouldn't be invoked to wrath because people wanted to put it up for archaeological reasons instead of religious reasons. You get a third strike for mocking God, Snopes. I used to use Snopes growing up. Like I said, I am done with them beyond belief. And the article Snopes uses concerning these people who said that they were building a temple, I believe they all said arch when I looked into them. But they also used the New York Times headline for their work. And guess what? People think they can trust the New York Times and will use those as absolutely factual and tell you that you are wrong if you do not believe them, solely because it was in the New York Times. And this stupid article got almost 4,000 shares. It's unbelievable. From the New York Times, Life Among the Ruins, next month the Temple of Baal will be coming to Times Square. They say the arch from the Temple of Baal is what is coming later on, just like all the other people over the internet. So I do not understand, well, I guess I do. But obviously what Snopes' problem was is they wanted to make it sound like people thought a real church was coming, a real religious temple was coming, because Snopes wanted to put it as mostly false instead of the fact that it's absolutely true. They don't want people to know that. Seems to me the confusion probably came straight from IDA. The New York Times has a picture of the Temple of Baal on top, but they also have a picture of the Triumphal Arch. So the IDA, maybe while they were trying to figure out which one to put up, or maybe it was a total attempt to confuse the heck out of people, or doing some sort of witchcraft by making people think it was from the Temple of Baal when it was the other one, I don't know. But it's probably from the IDA, because a lot of people seem to be quoting the IDA and also using images from the IDA. We know the IDA planned on doing the Temple of Baal at one point, and they probably planned on doing 1,000 Temple of Baal doors, and then they decided maybe that we shouldn't know that. You know, who knows? But on the New York Times, there was a correction. March 19, 2016. An earlier version of a photo caption accompanying this article misidentified a section of Palmyra ruins. The image was of the arched gate, not the Temple of Baal. See, the writers from the New York Times, they don't know what's going on. They were just given these images and thought that they were the right ones. They were told the information, but no one can do their job anymore and actually investigate thoroughly before reporting on it. And so we see tons of articles contradicting each other on the same time period. Later on in the article, one of the antiquities demolished at Nineveh was an enormous figure of a lamassu, a winged bull with a torso of a man and the beard of a king. It was a protective deity that watched over the Nergal Gate, a major entrance into the city. The lamassu was probably installed during the reign of King Sennacherib, who ruled from 705 to 681 BC. He was an expansionist leader under whom Nineveh became the capital of the Assyrian Empire. The muscular iconography of the lamassu matched Sennacherib's imperial ambition. Before smashing the sculpture, Islamic state fighters chiseled off its face with a pneumatic drill. The winged bull carried the history not only of kings but also of ordinary people. The winged bull was Nimrod/Tammuz. They are mourning for this Nimrod statue. They are weeping for Tammuz. From Flavorwire.com, world's largest 3D printer being used to bring replicas of the Arch of the ISIS destroyed Temple of Baal to London and New York City. The executive director of IDA told The Guardian, "It is really a political statement, a call to action, to draw attention to what is happening in Syria and Iraq and now Libya. We are saying to them, if you destroy something, we can rebuild it again. The symbolic value of these sites is enormous. We are restoring dignity to people." Alexei Karanawaska, the director of technology at the Institute, acknowledges that people might fear that there's a risk in erecting these pregnant symbols in the middle of similarly iconic and extremely trafficked squares, she told the Journal. A building like the National Gallery or Trafalgar Square, these are major targets by virtue of what they are. Simply by placing a thought-provoking piece of art in one of those spaces, the level of heightened risk is very limited. I just wanted to point out the word erect and pregnant together here is absolutely no accident, considering where the arch was placed between the phallic symbol and the dome representing a pregnant belly. The word squares here may be important too. The elite want to square the circle. It's called squaring the circle or squaring the compass, and I may have mentioned that in this video, but it's been a long time making this video and I forget. From Washington Post, how 3D printers can help undo the destruction of ISIS. In the case of the ancient Arch of Palmyra, which was part of the Temple of Baal, obviously there wasn't time to assemble a full collection of 3D photos of the entire arch before the ISIS terrorists struck. Instead, architects and historical preservationists will be working off 2D images for the sections of the arch that have been destroyed. The researchers will then use a proprietary cement mixture to give the 3D printed object the approximate composition and density of the original arch. So the Washington Post agrees with Snopes that the Palmyra arch is from the Temple of Baal. Here is a map showing how far apart they are. You can see that they are not connected here. If you were a tourist, you would say that they were the same location. But the Arch of Triumph is almost halfway between the Temple of Bel and the Temple of Baal Shamin, which were always listed as two separate monuments in the articles I was reading. I feel like I am going a little crazy reading conflicting stories all day long. Also, CNN said the arch was made of Egyptian marble. This one says it's proprietary cement. I wonder which one it was, right? Probably the cement. It looked cementy in the pictures. Also, the pictures from the IDA on this particular article show a mock-up of the Temple of Baal's arch. You can tell because it is flat on top there, not arched. Also, they made sure to get the sun right above the arch and the dome right underneath it. This is a mock-up. They put the sun there on purpose. From independent.co.uk, replica of Syrian Arch of Palmyra that survived ISIS attack to be erected in Trafalgar Square and New York. They show the Temple of Baal archway. Replicas of the 2,000-year-old Syrian Arch of Palmyra, which survived blasts by ISIS, will be erected in London and New York using the world's biggest 3D printer. The monument, and they mean the Temple of Baal, was attacked by Islamist fighters and was largely reduced to rubble. One of the 15-meter-high arches which stood at the temple's entrance survived. The construction of the temple entrance has been proposed by the Institute for Digital Archaeology, IDA, who will use the world's largest 3D printer for the project. So they say it's the arch to the Temple of Baal, and they call it the Arch of Palmyra. Also, quote, the temple was dedicated to the Mesopotamian god Bel in AD 32 and was the center of religious life in the area, end quote. Bel is Nimrod, the sun god. If Jesus was born 911-3 BC and was 33 years old when he died, it was very shortly after Christ died. The article also says it will be full-sized, which it wasn't. 2/3 of the size, as I said earlier. From the Telegraph, replica of historic Syrian arch attacked by ISIS to be recreated in Trafalgar Square. Before the arrival of Christianity in the 2nd century, the citizens of Palmyra, the city of palms, worshipped the god Bel, who is often represented holding a palm leaf. During its history, the structure served as a pagan temple, a Christian church, and a mosque. And then there's this picture of Trafalgar Square, where the arch was to be placed. But instead of an arch, there is a sun. This is absolutely bizarre. There is no explanation for why they put a picture of a sun in Trafalgar Square. I'm going to get back to that. Under it, it says, the Palmyra Arch is due to be on display during World Heritage Week in April. The arch proposed for Trafalgar Square will be made of stone powder and a lightweight composite. Alexei Karanawaska, a physicist at Oxford and the Institute's technical director, told The Times, we have to be very careful not to damage the York stone paving slabs, so we needed something lighter than concrete. So much for CNN's Egyptian marble statement. I wonder how many other stories in the news have conflictions as much as this story does. Alright, the story of the sun in this picture. In 2012, remembering that the article that has this picture was from December 28, 2015, in 2012, there was a sun put up on January 23rd in Trafalgar Square for a Tropicana orange juice promotion. From the Daily Mail, artists drive away the Monday morning gloom with giant sun rising over Trafalgar Square. Dawn broke early today after an artist installed a fake sun in Trafalgar Square to chase away the Monday morning blues. Delighted onlookers in central London bathed in warm sunlight as the spectacular installation began to glow at 6:51 a.m. on a chilly January day. The brilliant sun is as bright as 60,000 light bulbs and can reach a boiling 100 C at its core, Celsius, although it has an internal cooling system. It will not set until 7:33 p.m. today, Monday, obviously back then, extending daylight for would-be picnickers by a welcome 3 hours. There were chairs set up so that people could sit there and watch it. And I believe they had orange juice, of course, because that was the promotion. The luminous orb was designed by leading art collective Grey World for Tropicana Fruit Juice's Brighter Mornings campaign, and took 6 months to construct. Tourists and commuters gathered beneath its rays on deck chairs this morning as they soaked up some rare winter sunshine. Notice the sun on her sunglasses. It is the one-eye symbolism. I'll leave some links below to more information, and there is a YouTube video concerning it, about the making of it and everything. In 2015, the 2015 article was putting the sun picture and connecting it to the archway. And it makes total sense when you know that this is all pagan sun god worship, but the average reader, it made absolutely no sense that a sun would be in that picture, especially from 2012 in a 2015 article. I hope you can see that this is blatant messaging. And January 23rd in 2012, I mean, it doesn't matter what year it was, but when they put this up, that's a satanic holiday too. January 20th to the 27th, they abduct and have ceremonial preparation and holding of sacrificial victims for Candlemas, which is Groundhog's Day. Remember, Mass, like Christmas. Mass means death, so Christmas is Christ's death. These holidays are all about death. This video ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to split these up. This video would have been a lot shorter if the articles had agreed with each other. But I wanted you to be able to hear all the different sides. I don't think the Triumphal Arch was Egyptian marble, mostly because it was probably going to be too heavy and it looked more like concrete. They didn't want to damage the sidewalk, and we had at least 2 or 3 sources saying that versus CNN that said it was marble. Why do the lies matter? Well, because they might hide more truth in the lies. You never know when it may matter. The IDA really wanted to make this arch from the Temple of Baal. They'd been planning it. They had lots of artwork done up for it, and articles mentioned it back in November of last year. So perhaps they made an arch from the Temple of Baal, and perhaps they made it with Egyptian marble. I mentioned the quote from Contact the other day concerning CERN. The quote I was looking for in Contact, S.R. Hayden says, "First rule in government spending. Why build one when you can have 2 at twice the price? Only this one can be kept secret, controlled by Americans, built by the Japanese subcontractors." So why build one arch when you can have 2 at twice the price, with one being secret, right? Just a thought. I'll be talking about the dream concerning these archways in the next video. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed Sabbath.